Boom! According to that, I am live. I am here. I bring the poopy. Let's get that in there. We've got Gimmeabreakman. We have Texan and Tokyo goods here to talk about. Welcome to Tokyo tonight. Very good to have you along. I'm moderately on time almost tonight. It's pretty good. Let me just see if I can get that in a good way and get that stopped so I don't have to hear myself. That's right, it's not 2.5 Oyajis. So good to see you all. I just realized the poop is nice to have there, but it stops me being able to actually read the comments on the screen. Hope you're all well. It was good to get 2.5 Oyajis back on track last night after a bit of a break. I'm going to put the poop there in the corner. Great to see you all. Thank you for joining me. We've got a lot of topics to talk about. I've got a track lined up which I've been meaning to record, so I think I'm going to do that at the end of the show. And you know, just in response to Ben Duncan's comments, I think Mr. Cordychip's incessant emojis, they're an important part of the show, and it wouldn't quite be the same without them. So you go ahead with those emojis, you go crazy with those. So first thing, I guess we've got the poop here, so we might as well be explaining what this is about. I got a parcel this week from the very successful Kickstarter. It was a Kickstarter, wasn't it? That's right, that Texan and Tokyo ran, where I got the newest book from her series. I haven't read it yet, so I can't do a review on it. But what I can tell you is that when I first got my Japanese husband thinks I'm crazy. I thought this was awesome. I thought this was a really, really well written, really good book, which led me to go and get my Japanese husband still thinks I'm crazy. This is the second book. I think this was the second book, and this was also very good. So you know, Grace obviously proved it wasn't a fluke the first time. I'm worried that the poop is causing a focus issue. I mean, it's causing it can cause all sorts of issues, but yes, I also want to make sure that doesn't go flying anywhere. Because then, you know, it might hit the fan. You wouldn't want that. Let me come forward, perhaps that's the solution. So anyway, this was pretty good. This was still pretty good. My Japanese husband still thinks I'm crazy. I'm trying to find where is that focusing on? Anyway, actually, you know what? I think I've got this set so that it kind of blacks out after only 1 or 2 minutes. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to continue. The third book, Confessions of a Texan in Tokyo, still awesome. Less essays, more cartoons on this one, but still very, very good. Yeah, Grace has kind of gone to a new level with the new book, at least for a start. It is all cartoons, it's no longer blogs, and it is never. Boom, boom. It is glossy. The paper is nicer quality. The book is kind of nice and glossy. It's got a level up in every respect. Plus, I got a poop hat to go along with it. So I'm stoked. Thank you, Grace. I know it's been hard work. You've actually been making and assembling the poop hats, which I've been enjoying. Victor unboxed his on the show last night on 2.5 Oyajis. I unboxed mine actually. I think on Tokyo Digital Jam, which we had earlier this week. On Wednesday, the second one. I'm also going to talk about that tonight. But yeah, big shout out to Texan and Tokyo. Did a great job so far, and I can't wait to read the book because her books are awesome and it looks really, really nice. And she did a great job. If you haven't ordered it through the Kickstarter, go and get it from Amazon or whatever. I mean, you know, you can get it all the normal ways, and it looks really, really awesome. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to have the poo on as my co-host, but maybe just. It's a kind of a narrow window, so I'm going to keep it kind of to the side there. There we go. Half of a poop. That's my new hosting partner. By the way, Andrea Moboy, great to see you. Lara, great to see you. Sergeant Bilko is there, I believe. Good to see you. Icarus, 18, great to see you. Hey, Ahmed, good to see you indeed. Yes, and I think the combination of Norski and Grace, it works out nicely for that channel. I mean, they don't need my shout out, but I'm just going to give it because they're just, you know, they're awesome and they do a good job. So good job. What else have we got? I had another announcement in my head to do before the show. There was actually something I want to show you guys. It's from my Facebook. So this guy, let me show you, Kenny Gagne. I assume that's a French name pronounced Gagne, or you know, I'm not sure exactly what the exact right pronunciation is. But anyway, he's made a game, which is, I think it's a web game. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but basically used my reggae music that I made on this Korg app right here in a game. It's a kind of a simple thing. It is a Kickstarter also. I haven't played it. I want to go and have a play with it and check it out myself, but it's kind of cool to see a track of mine getting used in a game. Temiko, great to see you. Kia ora. And Barringer, very nice to see you, sir. So yeah, that's super cool, and you know, the whole world of game music has been opened up to me by the other members of the Tokyo Digital crew, who are, you know, a lot of them are dedicated game music makers, and I've found a new new applications, a new kind of, it's opened up a whole world. So it's been really, really cool, and it's really nice to see something like this. So I appreciate it, Kitty Ganyan. I hope I'll be able to figure out a way to show it on this show. Sean Bro, all will be revealed with the title. I mean, basically what's happened with the title is that the lost kid was in fact found, of course. But he was lost, and we'll talk about that today. We're going to talk about how the government has, with the renewed butter shortage, is actually going to import 600 tons of butter. It's not known where it's going to be imported from, but there's going to be 600 tons of extra butter, which I still think is silly. They should just make imports, you know, free up, not protect the butter, is what I think. But anyway, that is coming, that is happening. And the other one is the cost of living. I found an article in Japanese today, which I tweeted, which the topic comes up, and it's an interesting viewpoint on what the minimum feasible wage for living in Japan is. So yes, indeed. I see complicated emoticons going on here, but yes. Robert 1967 Canada, does he have disturbing games? Well, if he's got my music, it'll be possibly even more disturbing than usual, if that's what he's going for, you know. Then well, anyway, I want to check it out. So that face is screwed. I don't know what you mean. Oh, you're talking about the Mr. Cordic. I'm sorry, I made the mistake of paying attention there. It does make me happy, but I want New Zealand butter if I can get it. I mean, I do worry with the news story saying that the Ministry of Agriculture is going to import 600 tons of butter. Did excite me, but you know, this stuff could have been from Chernobyl for all that we know. And it is a thing, that's what they did with the rice, like 20 years ago now, when there was a rice shortage in Japan. They imported it from Thailand deliberately because they knew it would be inferior quality, and they knew that everyone would be begging to go back to Japanese rice afterwards. They didn't actually want to get good quality American or Australian rice. I'm a bit worried that they are going to do the same thing with the butter deliberately. Get crappy stuff. You know, if you're going to get butter, get good butter. I mean, this is like good life advice that I'm giving to you right now. I thought last night it was pretty good. It did take a few minutes. Someone made a comment that they thought we're slipping. I thought it was a bit of a bumpy beginning because you know, Victor just finished a lesson, and we've kind of come back for a couple of weeks hiatus. But I thought the show last night, by the way, 2.5 Oyajis, it was good. We had some good humour. We had some vigorous disagreements. It was good, and we hit all the topics, and we finished on time. Matagajinka, you never know. I wouldn't. Andrea, nothing's wrong with Aussie butter, actually. It's almost as good as New Zealand butter. But the point is, you know, Aussie butter, New Zealand butter, you know, it should all just be, you know, TPP countries. We should be able to get it here. I say this forever. There's nothing wrong with Aussie butter. I was trying to think, is there anything wrong with Aussie butter that I can think of? But no, there isn't. No, Aussie's still okay with butter. The chocolate isn't so good. It's because you guys have hotter weather. In New Zealand, we have a cooler climate, which allows us to put more milk into the butter without it melting, so we have better chocolate. But the butter is cool. Renee Halpman, awesome to see you. Oil for the win indeed, Ben Duncan. And good to see James O'Hara is here. Yeah, you know, people have been talking about switching to oil for a long time, and I've been through Spain and all that sort of stuff. It's nice, but it's a little bit hipster, you know. I mean, in the end of the day, there are days when I'm just like, screw the oil, give me butter. I don't care anymore. And you know, and this whole thing as well about the health pyramid, how we are told to avoid fats, and now they've changed their minds and said eat as much fat as possible. It's very confusing, but I think butter's gone back to being good for you now anyway. And don't worry, Andrew, I go back to Australia and I eat Australian butter all the time. And you know what? I'll tell you one thing, I will give rate Australian food above New Zealand. I like Australian meat pies better than I like New Zealand meat pies. I've never found any meat pie in New Zealand better than 4 and 20 pies. And I get a lot of shit from my New Zealand friends for saying that. But no, Australia does pretty well, you know. Our sheep are cuter. You're never gonna beat us when it comes to good-looking sheep. Sorry, I mean, you know, we know what we're talking about in that department. But yeah, the butter is totally cool. I'm with that. So the first topic that I've picked out today, this is a thing which just reminded me of something which I often think of in Japan. Movies. When a movie ends and the credits roll, I'd like to take an impromptu poll, including him for Grey 62, who just joined, and Light Japan indeed, who was asking if this is on. So yes, welcome. How's it, Light Japan? Welcome. I want to know, for all these people from around the world who are watching, when the movie finishes, do you get out when the credits start to roll, or do you sit and watch the entire credits roll and then leave the movie after that? And I'd like people to give their view on this now. In Japan, the reason I'm saying this is that in Japan, thank you, Andrea. People sit in the movie theater through the credits, even when there's no B-roll, even when there's no outtakes, even when there's nothing there to watch, and the credits are all in English, and there are a bunch of like Hollywood, makeup people and so on. Japanese will sit through the whole thing, and it's like, even though I want to go, and even though I know that the credits are going to run for 6 minutes and have no sound or have any purpose, you have to sit there. It's really awkward to leave, and if you try to get up and leave, which is what I typically do, I leave as soon as the credits start to roll, it's kind of like, what are you doing? So yeah, but it is a thing though in Japan that people will sit through the credits. So who knows? I don't know what that is, but it is worth sitting there if you see that there's going to be outtakes, and I do like to catch those if there's something. And it is always cool when they put the Easter egg at the end of the credits or something there that you might miss if you're in the cinema. But for me, that's what's fun about the DVD. It looks like everybody here just gets up and goes. Maybe it depends on the film, the soft distortion. That's a good point. But there's a big debate going on in Japanese. Do you sit and wait for the whole thing? And there's a vigorous internet debate going on around this. But the Japanese practice is definitely to sit. I guess when you pay $20 for a movie ticket, like you often do in Japan, yeah, you might as well get all your money's worth. But yeah, that's an interesting one. There was some debate about this. I remember some months ago when there was this big deal about a documentary made about how healthy and wonderful school lunches are and how kids make them and serve them to each other. And I heard some people come up and call BS because they know someone whose girlfriend is at a school, and that never happened. Ben Nuckin, your girlfriend got mad at you. Well, congratulations on having a girlfriend to get mad at you about that. Caroline, good to see you. You sat through the staff and the credits, and the staff were angry and called you. Whoa, this is in Ireland as well. That's kind of that is weird. I guess yes. Don't unless you want to sit through homosexual abuse. Don't sit through the credits in Ireland. It's a good note to take there. I guess all the staff wanted to go home early or something. I don't know. Maybe there's a good soccer game on. That's pretty. And yes, Fox Morris, thank you for saying the song will be good. That is a bizarre story, Caroline. I'm glad I paused to just catch that comment, because that was a worthwhile contribution. Keep the strange stories coming, please. So power lunches, anyway, yeah, so the ladder's just started school, so now I'm getting at least first hand in my own personal individual case. Yeah, Nippon.com, they're rocking this stuff. This is, oh, you know what, I just looked at this. This story is 5 years old, so there you go. Yeah, just talking about the difference in the system, about how foods are acquired by the boards of education, how they are vetted by nutritionists. They're full. I mean, it is a step better than hospital food, but these are healthy foods, and they and not only that, but the kids actually assist with the preparation and serving. So they're taught to not look down on people who prepare their food and serve their food. They're taught that that's a normal job that they have to do, just like they clean the toilets in the schools, and so you don't look down on janitors and you appreciate labor. And the food is really good. I mean, the kids in Japan, it's kind of one thing with this is there's two things that happen as a result of the great school lunch system in Japan. You don't take lunch boxes in most cases. Again, exceptions everywhere, but in typical Tokyo public, government-run schools, everyone eats the lunch that is given to them. So, and there is this pathological thing about not wanting, poor kids to feel or look poor against the rich kids and stuff like that. I tell you, Mr. Cordychep, that is a perfect use of the term uzai. Although, seriously, if your girlfriend's calling you uzai, that's like you're pretty close to breaking up. But that would be a perfect example of that situation if that is what was used. But yeah, so they actually have this thing in poor neighborhoods when people check about, like poverty, which does happen, particularly in the Adachi ward of Tokyo. There are polls that find out that kids only eat 2 meals a day, and one of those 2 meals is the school meal that they're given. And this is probably partly why kids, I mean, they're not allowed to drink, Coca-Cola. They're not allowed to, have ice blocks like we used to have, or meat pies. They actually have quite nutritious food. It's actually, it's not that there aren't fat kids, but it's kind of hard to be fat because the kids are, given such healthy food all the time on a managed sort of a diet, and and all the other things, all the other clubs and all the activities. Their kids are kept busy as hell. But I think it's really, really cool. And yes, that Irish cinema story is going through. Oh my God! People used to play that national anthem, "God Save the Queen," in British cinemas. Well, I would rush out to avoid that. Algae is a superfood. Well, I'm pretty sure it's not super to taste, but I'll take your word at that. I've had food like algae in Japan. Good to see you, Wikipedia. But in any case, this is something I think is kind of cool. The only downside is that, seriously, confession, one thing I was really looking forward to having a lad to take out was, he's like 6 or 7 years old now. If this was New Zealand, I'd be like sneaking out, on weekends saying, "Hey lad, let's go get a pizza, or let's go get some Burger King, or let's go, get junk food." He doesn't eat hamburgers. I can't even take him to McDonald's. And, if there's a happy set, I'll say, "Look, there's a happy set." I mean, I feel like a failure as a parent recommending happy sets to my son. But sometimes I feel like a Big Mac and I want to take him in. He's like, "Dad, how about you go in sometime you're not with me, buy a happy set and just give me the toy." And I do it. And I do it. But this is I think it's a positive reflection on the lunch system in schools. This is a good article which has caught my eye this week, which I read earlier in the week, and it is this is by Richard Smart. That's why it's so good. He's a good. He writes for a lot of publications, but this is basically talking about the phenomenon of how quickly Tokyo renews itself, how buildings get knocked down and rebuilt very quickly, how neighborhoods change their entire look within years. This is it. I've moved house like 7 times in 17 years in Tokyo, and most of the neighborhoods that I've lived in the past, I go back to now. I'm lost, or places that I want to go back and find again that I really like are gone, and that's good, and it's also kind of bad. It's kind of you wish you instantly become a stranger in neighborhoods that you're supposed to know, but that's also what keeps it kind of fresh and new and exciting, and that's why I've been able to stay in Tokyo for 17 years, even though I'm someone who's accustomed to moving a lot, through my life. So it's a really well-written article. They're talking about that phenomenon, well worth a read. And sorry about your trust issues there, Mr. Koriche. By the way, Welsh Draco, new diet trend, agave fiber powder or syrup. Don't know what that means. But go for it. I'm still doing the old kickboxing. I've been going kind of hard out. I'm actually in pretty good shape at the moment. But yes, I haven't cracked 80 kilograms, which is something I would still like to do. I'm almost there, but at the same, I could if I just, actually change my dietary habits or something right away, but I want to do it slowly, and I'm going down in little 100-gram increments, and that's cool with me. Fonts, I love the fonts. The site colas.com. This is a site of free Japanese fonts, and not just like kana, but like kanji and everything. They just did an update recently of cool designer fonts, I believe it is. Nihongo the free font to 作者様に感謝、最近リリースされた日本語無料フォント. So if you're into finding free Japanese fonts that are made that are comprehensive Japanese fonts, like in these cool sort of handwritten styles and stuff like that, if you want to ever write Japanese, these are free. Download them, load them on your computer, and you've just got all these options other than Gothic or Micho for awesome looking designer Japanese fonts, and these look kind of funky. This is like one of my favorite sites, and fonts, as you know, are like one of the most awesome things in the world. Andrea, they're talking about South Korea, and there you go. The same as Japan. They do the cleaning and stuff like that. And it's interesting to see the discussions about the different angles on food there. Mr. Koriche, I love the food. Who doesn't like the fonts? Seriously. In fact, if you don't like the fonts, I mean, that sort of person doesn't exist. But now this is why it was one of my goals is that when you live in a country that only has 2 channels, and everyone finishes work at 5 o'clock, and the news starts at 6:30, and the show before it is Happy Days, which is the time that everyone tries to get home in time for, and the other channel has like horse racing on. For me, I felt like I lived in Milwaukee as a kid, and the Fonz was the coolest guy. in the world, pretty much, without dispute. We had nothing but American TV as well, which is why I've had it. Oh, I love that font. Nico Ryoku. That's another variation on the Nico Nico logo font. That's really cool. I love that sucker right there. I haven't downloaded these yet myself. I'm gonna go grab that one. Mr. Cordy Chap, are you claiming to be the fonts? Because if you are, I'm gonna have to put a sacrilegious mark against you. That's a really cool font there. New Zealanders would say, what you talking about, Willis? Or, I love it when a plan comes together. And I say that to Americans, and they're like, what the hell? How the hell do you know that? But yeah, no, that's all that we know. We don't have those things ourselves. All that we have in New Zealand is keep cool till after school kakite ano, which was just like from when I was growing up. When's the best time to visit Tokyo? Tokyo Cheapo, just celebrating its 4th anniversary, I believe. Good, great chaps. One of them's a Kiwi, so it's all good. When is the best time to come? Well, here you go. There's like only 2 really small windows in the year, and we've just lost the last one. This week, rainy season starts in Tokyo, and it's going to suck until November, maybe October, but probably November, when it's going to be the best time of year, actually. Winter is off season for Tokyo, and tickets are not too expensive. Really? Okay, well, actually, and Christmas is indeed very low key in Japan. But winter is like, I think the best time in Tokyo is it is consistently sunny. Spring. So what is the conclusion here? Early spring can have some cold days and warmer weather. But I would say actually that's right. I would say kind of March, April are pretty good. It's not, you get a good balance of food and so on. But anyway, nice little Tokyo Cheapo blog is well worth following and subscribing to, and some good advice on the best times of year to come to Tokyo, which I would always say are actually a very narrow window in like May, early June, or basically until the late May. We're kind of past the window at the moment when it's kind of tolerable spring weather, and then between, I'd say, November and end of December, January, it starts to actually get a bit snowy and crappy weather, but maybe till early January is pretty good in Tokyo. Those are the times I would personally recommend coming here. But yeah, the new episode of Japan Business. Oh, that's right. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about. So the new episode of the Joy of Japanese Business, Office Love and Relationships. What it's like having women or men, hitting on you in the office, and what's the status of office relationships in Japan. Big subject, and this is something that we had Rochelle had a very funny story to go along with that, and I had a couple as well. This is a really good episode and well worth watching. Highly recommend it. I also wanted to mention I went along to one of Rochelle's Working Effectively with Japanese seminars, actually, one of her workshops, which she held in Tokyo last week. I went along to that Friday last week, and it was really, really good. And what was good about it was a really good group of people. I guess the type of people that would go to that kind of event are people who already have enough of an interest, obviously, in Japan, or a connection to Japan, or experience with Japan, to invest the attendance fee. But what I liked was I went in there as I usually kind of do, kind of assuming, like in the videos, like I already know it all, I'm just going to give you some advice as well. But I met a bunch of people there with completely different experience to me. I have experience of growing up as a senpai in certain types of Japanese companies, growing up as a kohai, and advising Japanese and so on. But we had sales guys, we had HR guys, we had people who work in representing supply chain companies, and they have totally different perspectives and experiences. And I was like, whoa! I mean, these are actually people, I don't know, which would be great to get on this series or a show like it for another. I mean, I learned a lot from these other people in that thing. Mr. Cordy Chip, I didn't actually already do this one. We really flagged that we were building up to doing this one in the last season, and we never got around to it properly. So yeah, this was the one that we really wanted to do, and we've got this one this time. So yes. And that's right, Tai Nakamura's Hanami Michigan style was the theme for that one. And look out, because there'll be a new theme every episode from another member of the Tokyo Digital crew, from tracks that I personally like, that I mixed into very cool looking theme songs. So that was pretty cool. And yes, not only that, but actually after the day after the seminar, so I attended the workshop on Thursday, and then on Friday I actually recorded season 4. We already got there. And for the first time ever, I used Studio One in the YouTube space, which is the kind of the set. And they've actually got a fantastic ramen restaurant set in the YouTube space. It looks awesome. I've got photos in it a little bit later on here. But that was awesome. So yeah, we've already got that in the can. So we've still got 10 episodes to go, season 3. But there's going to be another Japan Business Time After Work edition coming not long after that. So there's going to be consistent episodes coming through. So that is good for you guys to know. I'll talk a little bit about the Okinawa thing. I've touched on this before. There's always been this kind of there's complex tension in Okinawa. The U.S. military presence there of course remains huge. They occupy 20% of the land on the island is used for U.S. bases. Let me just see if I can put that in a not too noisy. It's getting hot in here, and it's live streaming, so I cannot take off all my clothes. That's quiet mode, although even the quiet mode on this is kind of noisy. Yes, with the US bases, it's complicated. The US military obviously contributes hugely to the economy of Okinawa. Okinawa was actually kept as part of, I believe until 1975 or 1972, the US occupied it, even after the occupation of the rest of Japan finished, and they actually kept it a bit like Guam, or Saipan. They kept it as an overseas US territory. Okinawa was America. It was under basically de facto military occupation, but it was incorporated into America for a long time after the war, before it returned to Japan. That is too noisy. I'm going to turn that off. But yes, I will have to keep my shirt on somehow. I may have to take off things that are not visible in the shot. I don't know. But anyway, yes, so with Okinawa, the bases, they're important to Okinawa. They're very important, of course, to the security of the region. But at the same time, there's a lot of people from Okinawa who still resent the U.S. just for the fact that they took, the fighting in Okinawa resulted in 100,000 deaths. And believe me, there's resentful against the mainland, the main Japanese islands coming in and bringing the war to those islands as they are the U.S. there. But the Okinawans suffered more, and they're the only islands that really suffered a direct, land invasion. So they suffered pretty directly at the hands of the US. So you've got people who resent, and also then who had their land and property confiscated to be used for US bases. So you have that resentment. There's also really extreme left and right-wing politics. You have the right wing is made up of unions of people who work on the US bases, construction companies that get funded from the LDP that are also very friendly with America and try to generate local construction jobs, public service, and so on. But at the same time, you've also got very strong leftists who play on the anti-American feeling, the demand to kick out the US bases, return the land, and just to add to all of the fun, because the left wing in Okinawa is also very anti-central government. There are really low-key separatist movements, but they're generally among very disaffected sort of far-left people. Those are NGOs, those people who sit outside the US bases every day protesting. They get money through donations to, in non-profit political groups. And the accusations online are that, that money sometimes doesn't come from, it comes from many sources, sympathetic Communist Party supporters and unions and so on. But it also comes from outside of the country, people who wouldn't be too sad to see US bases leave from Okinawa, because the US bases there are pretty much stopping China and behaving in Northeast Asia the way that it's behaving currently in Southeast Asia. So it's very complicated. So what happens is that you've got this very finely balanced situation, and when basically the Americans screw up, as is almost inevitable, there's going to be some sort of crime, there's going to be some sort of military aircraft accident. Whenever this happens, though, it does provide the spark that triggers all of these protests that can be pretty virulent anti-American, anti-base protests. And what we had recently in Okinawa was we had not actually a member of the US military, it was a contractor. It's something that's really grown with the military lately in the US, that they like to use private contractors to support US military functions, but they're not actually military. Well, they actually had a non-military, but contractor, 20 years old, drunk, off base. Did he rape and murder or just murder? But he murdered a 20-year-old girl. Not something that you ever want, and I know base people get very defensive about this, and they say, well, Okinawans have crime as well, but it is different. I think when you are there, and when you're basically a military occupying force and guests, although it's hard to expect, especially a bunch of military people to be perfectly disciplined all the time and for there to be no crime ever, at the same time, you do have to also be sympathetic to the fact that when you've got a lot of hostility to the presence of the US forces there in the first place, when someone's daughter 20-year-old daughter, and in previous cases even younger, get abducted and murdered, it doesn't go down well with everything else there. So there's been really, really intense anti-American protests again, which actually caused Obama to even give a direct apology about this. So there was this thing where a lot of US-based families, military families in Okinawa, have given sympathetic protests. They've been standing up outside with signs that we are grieving with you and we are with the Okinawan people. Very, very nice gesture. Hasn't received any media coverage. It's been pulled up on Japanese far-right wing blogs that are kind of anti-Okinawan left-wingers. But it hasn't been pulled up by mainstream media very much. And why is that the case? It's a good question Americans are asking. Why doesn't Japanese news show this? For one thing, national news doesn't really cover Okinawa very much, and only cursorily, and only the fact that they have these massive anti-base protests, they might give them some coverage. Within Okinawa, there used to be a couple of newspapers, left and right wing, but basically the right wing papers kind of got shut down, and all that they really have left down there are very far left wing newspapers that wouldn't ever really, it wouldn't sell newspapers ever to break their editorial line of being defiantly anti-base and anti-American. Even if you see Americans doing nice things there, they would consider probably this to be a propaganda stunt, and so they wouldn't give it coverage. And there isn't media down there which would be sufficiently American friendly to cover it, which is a shame, because it means that something which is nice is you might say it's not balanced, but there again you have to understand there's really, really sensitive politics down there. And it's a tragedy what happened, and it's going to take. And you know what? And this is the thing. After this happened, they actually put a lockdown, no drinking off base. So they basically at a curfew that people weren't allowed to leave the base or go to parties off base or drink off base, and they had to be back. They're not allowed to leave the gates. After a few. For whatever time at night, 9 o'clock, and this is for all military personnel in Okinawa, even though the person responsible for this isn't military, actually, he's just a contractor. But even though they put in these kind of really draconian measures on the military, on the law-abiding, not guilty U.S. military, families and people living in Okinawa, they put these huge restrictions on them. But then what happens tonight, or last night, a 20-year-old Marine from Kadena Bay, Air Force Base, or Air Force, he must have been Air Force, but a 20-year-old actual, U.S. military, 6 times over the alcohol limit, drove speedily down the wrong side of the road, hit 2 cars, and seriously injured, put a woman seriously injured into hospital, and another person from the car that he hit head-on, while being extremely drunk, when he wasn't supposed to be off the base and drinking in the first place. So it's a tough situation down there. It is, and there's a lot of nuances to it. But that said, hey Theodore, good to see you. It is what it is, and this is why these situations are not really sort of that resolvable. But it's a bad situation, just got a little bit worse today, and these things will never end. I had a fantastic. That's not a great thumbnail, is it? But we had a great second episode. The first Wednesday of every month now we are going to schedule, and we're going to see what we can do if we can increase this or not. But we did another Tokyo Digital Jam. Basically a creativity discussion-based show centered around members of the Tokyo Digital crew, and if by default we'll just show up and talk music, which we talked a little bit on the show, but I really want to make this, hey Freestyle Fox, good to see you, sir. What our aim is to get different types of creative people, video producers, video editors, artists, writers, all kinds of creative people, and have them come on and talk about their creativity and what their process is. Like Japan, I'm glad that you are. Well, I'm glad this works with the rhythm of what you're listening to. We have these people who come on, and we just want to bring creative people who come on and talk about what inspires them, what do they aim to do, where do they find their inspiration for their creativity, what are their tools, what's their process, and to talk about that, because that is something that we dig. And it's not just all about Japan. We connect around Japan and about with the little creative hobbies and habits. And that's what the series is all about. If you want to catch these, of course, I will always give notifications of them. I'll try to do on this channel as I did last time, and on Twitter and Facebook and all that sort of stuff. But the easiest way is go and subscribe. We just broke the 100 subscribers on the Tokyo Digital Crew channel. It's not just me, it is also the other members who have YouTube channels, are all managers of the channel. We post tutorials and so on just partly to share information on how we do the things that we do, but we also do this monthly show, and I want to build this up over time. It was a really good show. I really enjoyed it, and it was really great to get Punk Chum, who not only is just an awesome artist and has a new comic called white rice, which actually I shared a link for on that video, so you can get the link for it from that video. She did all the artwork, of course, on Japan Business Time. Apart from the logo of Rochelle herself, she has her own avatar. And she's actually she did my avatar, which you can see on the side here. You know, she's and she does this. She does commissioned work, and I did this for commission. I value what she gave me, so I don't mind paying for it. She's really good at what she does, and she's cool, and you can hear her talk about what she does. It was a great episode. And it was great to see the other members of the crew live once again and to hang out. We even did a live jamming session, which was very, very bare bones, but it worked. There were little moments there that I thought it worked really well with the beat and the strumming on the guitar and stuff, so that was pretty cool, getting Tai and Mata and Foghat and all those guys and in sort of jamming, and that's something I want to develop. Wildfire 777, that's an interesting thing. Genetically is a bit of a weird thing. There are distinct faces in different parts of Japan. There is definitely a Kagoshima sort of a stereotypical face that's kind of distinctive. There are definitely the Tohoku faces, Kyushu faces. But Okinawa, like a real lifetime Okinawan, they look different. There is a distinct Okinawan face. Very distinct eyebrows, kind of round eyes, rounder face. There is a look to Okinawan people that can be identified in the same way. I mean, you could say that the genetic origins of all of Northeast Asia, you know, the Qing dynasty parts of China, Mongolia, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, you can say that they all come from the same genetic origins if you want to do it that way. But they're just like in Europe, you know, you could say that Swiss and French and German all have, they're all right beside each other and they swap DNA and they all have the same origins. You can say that. But there are people who look super French and people who look German and people who might look Swiss, you know, whatever. And it's the same sort of thing. There is a distinct Okinawan look. There is, not to say that there aren't plenty of people who I would never pick as Okinawan who live in Okinawa, and plenty of Japanese who've gone down there and become Okinawans and married Okinawans, and but there isn't distinct Okinawan face. So I don't know how it works with genetics, but yes, Jennifer Keller, nice to see you. That's a name I don't recognize, so very good to have you joining us on the show. Let's keep going. Tokyo Cheapo is advertising for interns and for people to work for them. Among the people who have worked for them, I didn't actually know. Tixin Tokyo, awesome blogger. They have good writers and they're a really good crew. So if you're into writing and looking for a place to write for, there are worse places you can start than Tokyo Cheapo. So I just wanted to throw that out there because they are a good bunch of dudes. That is me advertising on this channel that I was going to start the Tokyo Digital Jam with Pak-chan, so that was just there for information purposes. This is a great series that is just starting on gaijinpot.com. I believe it's a 4-part series and only the first has gone up. But being vegan in Japan, this is something a lot of people ask about. I have no information or help on this, so it's nice to see a blog that has some answers from someone who is trying to do this. What I can tell you is that although Japan is not a really meat-heavy culture at all, and I would say it's kind of, if you're like a really, really loose, immoral quasi-vegetarian, Japan can be pretty good if you don't mind if you're like a pescatarian or whatever. The old Buddhist thing, you're not allowed to eat meat, but you could eat rabbits and fish. Why you could eat rabbits, I don't exactly understand very well, and you could eat birds. But under traditional Zen Buddhist rules in Japan, people just didn't eat a lot of meat because they realized you could be reincarnated as the food that you would eat, so they put all these restrictions on. But that said, the stuff that is okay to eat, there is little bits of meat in everything. So if you want to, from an ethical and principle basis, avoid meat and meat products, it's pretty tough in Japan. And there's no real understanding, or very limited understanding, I think growing understanding of accommodating vegans. But I would say it's actually probably easier to be a really adherent Jew or Muslim trying to stick to kosher or halal food rules than it would be to be a vegan almost. I've got Jewish friends who are here and I've tried to help them avoid pork and food. It's impossible because Japanese, they don't think. Is there any pork in this food? Oh no, there's only bacon. People don't know, so it's really hard to do, and it's even worse. I think if you're trying to stay as a loyal vegan. I have a lot of respect for vegans. I've got a lot of vegan friends. They have a really tough time. In the end, most seem to give up and end up going for a little bit of chicken and fish. But that said, if you want to make a go of it, there is a series starting on Gaijin Pop blog, so it's a great blog anyway, but make sure you follow. Takarazuka just became the 4th municipality in Japan to recognize same-sex partnerships. Kind of surprising, I guess, when it comes up that they weren't earlier in a sense. They are from a very conservative part of rural Kansai. They're a small municipality, in fact, Hyogo Prefecture, Kobe. But of course they are most famous for the arts school that they have. They have an all-female school, which is actually, I believe it goes all the way from like primary school, where they are a normal school, but they teach them basically acting and drama and singing. And the best trained, I mean, they're considered probably the best acting school in Japan for women. And the theatre, there's a professional theatre attached, which many of the graduates and students from it go into, which is famous because all the roles in the theatre, male and female, are played by women. And in fact, the women and girls are developed in their acting roles, sometimes playing male roles, as a career thing, and they're very good at them. And in fact, the women who play male roles are like these crazy sex symbol idols. Not just to lesbian women, for example, but actually also, well, in fact, why would it be lesbian women? But I guess people like masculine women, I suppose, but like women. But also just straight, women and whatever, just really go crazy just because they're very attractive. They play the role of like ideal men from a woman's perspective. So they actually have a lot of crazy heterosexual fans. And yeah, it's kind of, and a lot of these people, including the ones who play male roles, go on to become big drama and acting stars and newsreaders and so on, because they're just complete professional entertainers. So again, because of this thing that they're just famous for this all-female theatre troupe, it kind of feels natural that they would recognize couples that are both from the same gender. Yeah, they came forth anyway. Mr. Korichep, am I talking about lesbians? Well, not just lesbians. This is recognition of same sex. But you'd suppose that in a town that was famous for a theatre troupe, which specialized in playing relationships, and this is going back. This is a very conservative Japan and going a long way back in history. But where all couples have always been all female. Yeah, I guess there's always going to be a little bit of that, and I'd be pretty certain that in that town that wouldn't be seen as being too weird. So there you go. And indeed, Andrea, no butter indeed. And that's why I can never be a vegan, actually, because of the butter. Theodore, I love all people. Seriously, what kind of a question is that? But yes. So that's cool anyway. It's nice to see Takarazuka is there and flying the rainbow flag. And to me, it's just a common sense. It is an absolute civil rights and common sense thing. And by the way, Theodore, in response to your question, I don't dislike or like. I'm sure there are some lesbians who I would not like if I met, and I'm sure there are plenty that I think were cool. People are people, right? It's like asking me, to me, that question, do I like lesbians or do I like gay people? It's like asking me, do I like black people or do I like, it's just a stupid question to even, in fact, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say you got a stupid question, but it's a silly question. You should just take people as they come. That's a very politically correct answer, I know, but it is what it is. In China, Mitsubishi Materials, and unprecedented actually, forced labor. You know how during World War II, Japan conscripted a lot of labor from within Japan, just like in America, by the way. Every country conscripted labor, right? They said, okay, you're no longer a phone secretary, you've been conscripted by the government to go and make airplanes. This is what happened in America, it's what happens, everywhere. But of course, when you do that in countries and territories that you occupy, when they went over to China and said, hey, you guys are going to be working in mines for us, we're going to put you on a ship you to Japan and make you work in mines and not pay you. Well, yeah, that kind of didn't sit very well with the people who didn't recognize probably Japanese authority in the first place. And these people were working during the war for Japanese companies that profited, that sold what they made to the Japanese government. The companies were compensated, the workers were not. Often the workers included Japanese people, but these were occupied people. I believe it was a breach of war, war crimes or whatever. Japan has no Japanese companies ever paid compensation for forced labor during World War II, and part of the reason for this is that for each one of the bilateral treaties that had established diplomatic relations with Korea, with China, with all these countries, it did so on the basis that they would also pay a series of reparations to that government, and that government would handle any reparation claims of its own citizens, and that Japan would basically, those reparations would absolve Japan from direct claims and Japanese companies and individuals from war-related claims. So as a result, in spite of a lot of people not getting shit from the Chinese government and wanting to go back and get paid from the companies that they worked for as slave labor during World War II, No, the Japanese government has sort of said no, and they've told the Japanese companies don't pay them settlements, because if you do, it's going to open the floodgates, and every Japanese company is going to get sued, and it's going to make the treaty establishing diplomatic relations, meaningless. However, this has kind of been going on for a long time, and there's a particularly bad case involving Mitsubishi Group companies that were involved in mining, sort of the inheritor companies, Mitsubishi Materials, and they agreed to pay a paltry amount, only like $10,000 each to each one of the very few surviving people. They wanted to draw a line under it and to actually do a settlement and do the right thing. I guess they also have a great dependency now on trade with China and their image in China. So they went ahead and did this, but now everyone's going to be looking to see, is it going to open the floodgates on other claims? That said, I mean, there's no question it's probably the moral, it's the morally right thing to do, but it's going to be interesting to see what the outcome is. So Andrea did some nice work. I don't know what I saw, but yes, I was talking about being vegan there, so that was pretty cool. You're the Prince of Japan. Even your students tell you that, like Japan. Well, congratulations. We have a new prince. The prince is dead, but we have a new prince. Jennifer Keller, where are you located? You can come back to Japan anytime, but you should do so. Like Japan, you've had whale and horse. Yeah, I've had both as well, actually. I just had deep fried whale, so frankly, you couldn't really tell it from schnitzel. It tastes like beef. And horse, again, horse was just horse. Theodore, I'm not sure I would want money if it was free. I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose, wouldn't it? I'd want the money to have some sort of value. If the money, I'm sorry, now I'm just giving you a hard time. Anyway, what have we got next? Snapchat has just become more popular than Twitter. I've looked at Snapchat and been confused and walked away, and I'm pretty sure it's because people like me look at Snapchat and just think, what the fuck? That Snapchat is more popular than Twitter. I guess it's a site where you're guaranteed to not run into Generation X's or parents, and that's probably why it's winning. I don't know. Does anyone here understand Snapchat? Raise your hand if you understand Snapchat. I've tried it. I feel like an angry MySpace user who doesn't get Twitter. I feel like I've gone back in time to that sort of thing. But I mean, congrats to Snapchat, but seriously, I really don't get it. Batgirl, that's a cool name. Well, let me take that away. Does anyone have this? Can anyone help me with Snapchat? Because yeah, I mean, seriously, I can't get into it, and I'm already over social networked anyway. Yes, the poop moves. That's what poop does. Healthy poop moves. That's what it's supposed to do. But yeah, I don't get it, but it seems to be where all the cool kids are nowadays. I don't know, it might just be like Vine and just disappear. I really don't get it. Butter. We bring the butter. Japanese government, the Japanese Agriculture Ministry has announced, in order to make up for butter shortages, which have been exacerbated by the quake in Kumamoto, which has taken down their very big dairy region, and their infrastructure has been affected by the quake. They will be importing 6,000 tons of butter. It's not exactly clear where those 6,000 tons of butter are coming from. But it does mean, look at that photo. Isn't that a glorious photo? And it's even got like a video. But basically what it is saying here is that, because there's not enough coming through the supply chain and showing up in shops, the government is going to acquire 6,000 tons. Again, this sounds like Soviet Cuba to me, that the government, the commissars are going to be acquiring more stock, from where, how they're distributing it. Doesn't make any sense, but there will be more butter to make sure that we don't have more butter shortages, so that's kind of good news. Can't be avoided. This is the kid who got lost. So let's talk about this quickly. Damn, I thought we were nearly done. I thought I got out, and then it pulled me back in. So this kid, and I had a heated debate yesterday with Victor about this. Victor thinks that this is the face of a psychopathic kid. I think we all know the story by now, but I'll repeat it. I mentioned it in last week's show. This kid was basically there. He was with his family in the forest, and they were learning to forage for forest foods. And apparently, this kid, 7-year-old kid, being a 7-year-old kid, was sort of misbehaving and being naughty. When he saw other people walking nearby, he would pick up rocks and was throwing rocks in the direction of the other people, which made the dad sort of angry. So apparently they got in the car and they went for a drive, and at one point when he said the family was going to get out to take a break, the rest of the family got back in the car and left him at a particular spot in a very dense forest, crawling with brown bears, that regularly attack and eat people. The intention of the father was to discipline the child by scaring him a bit, and because the kid wasn't listening. When they told off the kid in the car, like, you want to be a part of this family, the kid wasn't really responding, so the father wanted to discipline him by scaring him a bit and make him realize what it would be like if he wasn't in the family. It was an extreme form of shunning, which is unfortunately kind of a common type of punishment. I've seen kids being pushed out onto verandas and shut outside of their house. Yes, that was something that. So the father thought he would escalate the discipline by abandoning the kid for 5 minutes and then driving back to pick him up again. Problem is, when he came back to pick up the kid was missing and they couldn't find him. First he said that he was walking around in the forest with the kid and the kid became lost when they started the search, but then he later admitted to the search authorities and the police that actually, he'd actually left the kid just to scare him just for a minute, and he came back. As it went on for 6 days in freezing cold temperatures, it was assumed that the kid must have been died. If he hadn't been, he would have died of exposure if he hadn't been eaten by bears at this point. The fact that they had search dogs at the site where the kid was let out of the car that couldn't pick up a scent, people were also starting to suspect maybe the father had actually, abused and killed the kid and buried him somewhere and was just using this whole thing as a cover story. Everyone was pretty much convinced by about 4 or 5 days into this that the kid must be dead. Victor's, by the way, is of the mind that the kid probably walked away from the spot where he was dropped off just to get revenge on the dad, which I think is crazy. But Victor expressed that view last night on 2.5 Oyajis, and you can see our heated debate about this. But anyway, the kid, it turned out, he walked for about 6 kilometers from the spot where he was dropped off through this dense forest full of bears, and he found an old hut used by the self-defense forces, which had running water tap, shelter, and a mattress inside. So the kid drank some water, slept on the mattress, and waited inside the hut until self-defense forces, which had excluded the hut area from the search zone because they thought it's generally inhabited area, so they thought it wouldn't really count. They actually specifically didn't look in this one area. And the kid was just there for 6 days, didn't eat anything, so he was a bit malnourished, and he was suffering from mild hypothermia. However, he was able to drink, and apparently this is the photo that they took of the kid when they found him. They said, "Hey kid, are you that kid?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm that kid, I'm Yamato." I said, "You're hungry?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm hungry. You want some rice?" "Yeah, I'll take some rice." So there he is eating some rice. But apart from the fact he's clearly lost a bit of weight from the photo that was put out of the search for him, he's got a bit of a suntan and whatever, didn't cry or anything. He was just completely composed and settled. He'd been abandoned, left in a forest, and missing for 6 days, and the kid was like totally calm. So the internet declared him a sort of a hero. He's a tough kid, I guess. But yes, I don't think he's a psychopath. I think he's a cool and tough kid, and he shouldn't have been dropped off in a forest and made to think he was being abandoned for 5 minutes. I think we are all that kid in some way, are we not? I couldn't imagine doing what that dad did, and I think he is being investigated right now, as he should be. Great. I mean, I haven't been so happy to read a news story about anything. I think that since I can remember is hearing that they found this kid and he's okay. So that was awesome. Yeah. Best USB mic on a budget. This is a big thing for a lot of people who are watching this. This is kind of cool. This is from Gizmodo. They actually review. They don't review. I use a SAMSON, not Samsung, but Samsung USB mic that I really like. The Blue Yeti, I think, came as top for podcasters, and for musos, I've never heard of this before, but what's it called? The Honeybee. So for podcasters, they say it's the Blue Yeti. And for musos, it's the Neat Bumblebee. It's a weird looking mic, but this is what they say. These are for USB, plug and play USB mics. So it looks kind of cool. They also talk about the other ones. So there you go. There's plenty of USB mics out there, but this is the latest from Gizmodo, so that's useful information. This was awesome. I used to actually be an astronomy geek, and I've ground a 15 centimeter, 6-inch telescope mirror. It took like 3 or 4 months of grinding the glass every day to do it. It was a serious effort, but I know what goes into. I'm pretty familiar with the optic. What goes into making lenses for optics, the same as in cameras as with telescopes actually. And I understand a little bit about the physics that are involved, which is that you need basically a perfect lens, and it acts like a bucket. And what you're collecting is photons, and photons are actually the very small, but they are a physical thing. They are the materialization of a light beam. and you're trying to capture as many of those as possible. Just basically imagining photons as being like, you know, rain. The bigger the lens, the more photons you're going to catch. The more photons you have, the more light you get. The brighter the image is, the more that you see. And glass has always been considered the best way to capture and focus as much of those as possible. And the thing is that the limitations that we have on cameras is that, you know, if you have to have a pinhole camera that's on a smartphone, it's only so big. No matter how good you make the sensor, no matter how good the glass is or whatever, no matter how well grounded it is, your bucket's only this big, and you're never going to be able to get the same image as a bucket that's bigger, because you've still got light passing through glass. And as I've always understood, glass is like the best medium for capturing all the photons that are there. You can't capture more photons through that smaller hole because they're just not there. You know, that's the whole idea. You're capturing everything that's coming through. Well, apparently I'm still trying to get my head around this, but there are these metal lenses that are coming out which actually manage to capture more, like, extra photons. They basically replace lenses. They're a nanoparticle manipulated, electronically manipulated, very easy to mass manufacture substitute for a glass lens. And they can actually simulate like something like a few millimeters across like that. Like, in fact, I think they were saying nanometers, can simulate like a 5 or 6 centimeter lens. So that to me sounds like somehow they're using like a tiny little thimble bucket, and they're capturing as much rain as like a big swimming pool of photons, which is like, one, it's crazy and mind-blowing. Two, I mean, I guess if they apply this to telescopes, it's going to be crazy. And three, it means that, yeah, if this technology really is as they say it is, and it sounds like it is, we are going to be able to have better than DSLR technology in our phones in the near future, which is like, yay. So into all of that, although, you know, possibly not with the next iPhone, but that's pretty cool. The music industry is suing YouTube again. They're suing the government to try to change the safe harbor. So I know everyone hates how they get all these DMCA claims and false flags and auto detection of the radio playing in the background, all of that stuff. But the fact is that YouTube still exists because they have all this auto detection, which, you know, they're doing everything that they could reasonably be expected to catch this stuff, is the argument. Plus, YouTube in the last couple of years has paid $3 billion to the music industry. So they shouldn't really be complaining too much, given that they're making a lot of money from YouTube. However, large parts of the music industry do want YouTube to be shut down, and they do want to be able to sue YouTube when someone like me uploads music onto YouTube illegally or without permission. So they are suing to remove the safe harbor, which allows YouTube to basically exist. Yeah, if they are successful at amending, and who knows what will happen after the next election in America, if the music industry succeeds at changing the DMCA, YouTube could disappear, you know, or at least it could be sued out of existence if this changes the way that they want to do it. And this whole medium, and they want to shut down this entire medium because they want to go back to forcing us to buy CDs, you know. So yeah. Andrea Moboy, have a good night there. Yeah, indeed it's late for you, so have a good night. I'll be finishing soon. Mata Gaijinka, well, you think the Gaijin copyright claim system is bullshit now? It's, you know, YouTube's doing its best just to survive, and they're trying to, you know, keep going through it, but it's going to get a hell of a lot worse if these people get their way. I talked about this actually in the season 4 of Japan Business Time, so maybe we'll talk about that, how new hires all look the same. Oh, it's the great thing here on the cost of living. I actually misinterpreted this when I posted this on Facebook. A survey of labour union members, male and female, said that in order to have a human-like, a basic standard of living in Japan, pre-tax, it's pre-tax. I thought it was in the hand, but they're saying pre-tax for a 25-year-old needs about 220,000 yen. Let me just check this again. Oh, that's right, Zeihiki Mae. I totally got that wrong. So that is pre-tax. So that would be about 150,000 in the hand. This is a nationwide standard. It would be higher for Tokyo. I've been absolutely just struggling to get by. I'm probably losing money slightly each month when I was getting probably a little bit more than that in my early years in Japan. And this is based on an assumption of rent of 34,000 yen a month. So for example, in Tokyo you'd be paying at least like 60,000 yen in most places. But yeah, it's an interesting survey just on what Japanese themselves consider to be a livable wage. That Japanese man Yuta featured on Japan Times. Good thing, that was awesome. Fox JP, you know, Kanto Kitsune, that guy, he's got 1,000 followers on Periscope. He's killing it with Periscope. I haven't watched it. I'm going to go and check one of them. But it's really, really cool that he reached that threshold. He's doing really well there. Short distance cabs, the minimum charge is now going to be lowered from 730 yen in Tokyo to 410. The overall rates are not going to change. It just means that at the moment you have to travel like 2.5 kilometers before the meter kicks in or something like that, whereas now it's going to charge from 1 kilometer. And the idea from this is that a lot of tourists said that, they when they get off the train, they don't want to get lost on the way to the park or the museum that they want to go, so they use a taxi even for a really short distance, but they don't want to pay like for going for 2 kilometers when they're only going 1. So it's actually a result of tourism surveys that they're actually going to lower the minimum threshold to 410 yen to be more tourist friendly, which is a good thing. And that is it. Oh yeah, this is the final one. This is a campaign which Japanese are complaining is ageist. It is interesting. You can see these onsen rules. First one about washing your body, and it's got basically an old person looking happy seeing the young person washing first, and then angry seeing the young person not washing and getting into the onsen. Another one about bringing your towel into the bathtub, don't bring it in. Or again, the stupid young person and angry old person. The commentary on this in Japanese was they seem to be portraying the young people as the offenders, but the people with the worst manners in onsen that many of the commenters see are actually old people who flout these rules. Which I thought was funny, but anyway, these are good rules to know. And that is the set where I recorded season 4 of Japan Business Time with Rochelle Kopp. It's a ramen set. It's like the most awesome set ever. I made one mistake. I wanted to use real ramen, so I got some cup ramen and I poured it, and it was horrible. It was horrible. I was tasting it still in my mouth for like, the next day pretty much, and trying to get it out. It was chemical. It was the first time I've had cup ramen in ages, and it was awful. That's all the topics. We are right on the hour. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to record. I've queued up a track to record. I'm going to play that track which I want to record, and then that will be it. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to do something. I'm going to try something completely different, which is I am going to try capturing directly from directly from the iPad, so you can see it there, and I am going to turn that on, and I'm going to change the setting so it will take away the comments, but I want to do iPad vertical, so I will do this and Control G to switch. Booyah! So I'm going to play this live like this. Let me just check that the sound works. In fact, let me also make sure that I've got the right track. The track is called Happy Hour. There is no sound there. I know why it won't work, but I've gotten this to work before. It won't work with the HDMI in, but you know what, if I take it out, okay, let's work now. Oh, come on. Okay, that's not going to work. So instead of that, I'm going to go back to the normal way. That is okay. Let me go back to the regular setting. Okay, let me just get back to this. Change. Oh no. Oh shit, I don't know why that is doing that. Okay, camera. Let's give that some elevation. And why is that appearing upside down? I don't know. Okay, well, well, let's just do it upside down. Okay, so I'm going to record this, and that's going to be my outro. So let's do this. Live recording, record, and let's rock this. Have a good night, everyone. This is going to be going up on the SoundCloud really soon. Boom, and recording. I'm going to share that on SoundCloud. I hope you enjoyed it. That is the end of my show. See you again next week. There'll be more around. Check out Japan Business Time on Tuesday. Check out 2.5 Oyajis next Saturday. And see you all again soon. Have a great week and peace. Booyah. I have to stop this thing now. Where do we go? We go over here. Stop streaming. See ya.